Hello everyone. So this is the second hour of SHM, and in this hour we are going to talk about kinetic energy of SHM, potential energy of SHM, spring block system, and maybe if possible a little bit about torsional pendulum. So without wasting time, let's start learning about the kinetic energy of a particle performing SHM. Now let's say we have a particle whose displacement at any time t is given by x equals to a sine omega t. So where is phi? I have taken the initial phase angle as 0. I have taken the initial phase angle as 0. So if the displacement at any time t is given by a sine omega t, then the velocity at any time t will be given by dx by dt, and that will be equal to d of a sine omega t by dt. Now, a is a constant, you can take it outside. Differentiation of sine omega t gives you cos omega t multiplied by omega. So the velocity at any time t for initial phase angle equals to 0 comes out to be a omega cos omega t. So we can say that as the velocity at any time t will be a omega cos omega t, one can even write that the kinetic energy, which is half mv square, will be equals to half m into a square omega square cos square omega t. This will be the kinetic energy of particle at any time t. Now, what we can do with this? You can say, sir, we know that cos square theta can be written as 1 plus cos 2 theta by 2. Sir, how do you know? Let's see. We know that cos 2 theta equals to cos square theta minus sin square theta. Yes, sir. In place of sin square theta, using the trigonometric identity, you can write 1 minus cos square theta. So we can write cos 2 theta equals to cos square theta minus 1 minus cos square theta. So you get cos 2 theta equals to 2 cos square theta minus 1. Bring this minus 1 on the left hand side. So you get 1 plus cos 2 theta equals to 2 cos square theta. Hence, cos square theta equals to 1 plus cos 2 theta by 2. Right? Now we are going to use the same thing here. In place of cos square omega t, I can write 1 plus cos 2 omega t by 2. So we get the kinetic energy of SHM to be equals to half m omega square a square times 1 plus cos 2 omega t by 2. On expanding the terms, we get 1 by 4 m omega square a square plus 1 by 4 m omega square a square cos 2 omega t. This is the equation of kinetic energy. Now focus here. Yesterday I told you guys, if bachon, let's say you have got equation like x equals to a plus b sine omega t. What is the mean position and what is the amplitude? So we learned that a is the mean value and b is the amplitude, right? Or if I say that x equals to 4 plus 3 sine omega t. What is the mean value? What is the amplitude? So 4 is the mean value and 3 is the amplitude. So it here, look, kinetic energy equals to 1 by 4 m omega square a square plus 1 by 4 m omega square a square cos 2 omega t. Now tell me kids, what is the mean value and what is the amplitude? So you will say, sir, this part which is not at all varying with time, that is the mean value. So the mean value, the mean kinetic energy of a particle performing SHM is given by 1 by 4 m omega square a square. There is one more thing that you can say. Using this function, you can say kinetic energy at any time t is half m a square omega square cos square omega t. Yes. Sir, if you are asking me the mean value of kinetic energy, I will say only this part is variating cos square omega t. As the value of t keeps on changing, the value of cos square omega t keeps on changing. Now tell me, what is the average value of cos square omega t over one complete cycle? What is the average value of cos square omega t over one complete cycle? Sir, cos square omega t can never be negative. It always have to be positive. And it keeps on fluctuating between 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So remember that the average value of sine theta and cos theta over one complete cycle is 0. The average value of sine square theta and cos square theta over one complete cycle is half. So if you take the average value of cos square omega t, that is half. So you will get half m a square omega square into half, and this half into half gives you 1 by 4. So you can even think this way, the average value of kinetic energy over one complete cycle is 1 by 4 m omega square a square. When I answered this question first time in life, I answered it this way. For a particle performing SHM, the maximum speed is equals to omega a, where at the mean position. The minimum speed is 0, where at the extreme position. So the maximum kinetic energy of a particle performing SHM will be when the speed is maximum. So that will be half m omega square a square, and the minimum possible kinetic energy of a particle performing SHM has to be 0. If minimum is 0, maximum is half m omega square a square. They are asking me average. Just take the average. So simply do 0 plus half m omega square a square by 2. This last method I have used of taking the average is wrong, but it gives the right answer anyways. Okay, so the proper method comes through the integration, or from this particular justification that over one complete cycle the average value of the second term will be 0. So for one complete cycle the average kinetic energy is 1 by 4 m omega square a square. So now from here we can say three things. First, the average value of kinetic energy is 1 by 4 m omega square a square. Yes sir. The second thing that we can say is the amplitude of kinetic energy. The amplitude of kinetic energy is equals to 1 by 4 m omega square a square. And the maximum kinetic energy. What will be the maximum kinetic energy? Easy to remember. Kinetic energy will be maximum when the speed will be maximum. The maximum possible speed equals to angular frequency times amplitude. So the maximum possible kinetic energy is half into mass of the particle into omega a whole square. Hence the maximum possible kinetic energy of a particle performing SHM is half m omega square a square. Easy. Now we can say, what is the amplitude of kinetic energy? Amplitude of kinetic energy is also 1 by 4 m omega square a square. Now the next question, what is the frequency of variation of kinetic energy? So we have just learned that kinetic energy will be given by 1 by 4 m omega square a square plus 1 by 4 m omega square a square cos 2 omega t. So it is the angular frequency of variation of kinetic energy is twice the angular frequency of SHM. So remember this important thing, simple thing. The angular frequency of variation of kinetic energy is double the angular frequency of variation of position. So frequency of kinetic energy is 2 times the frequency of SHM. I can explain this further using graphs. Let's say this is the position versus time graph of a particle performing SHM as per the equation x equals to a sine omega t. Then what will the kinetic energy versus time graph will look like? So you will say, sir, at time equals to 0, where position is 0, the particle is at mean position. At mean position, the speed is maximum. The speed is maximum equals to omega a. As the speed is maximum, kinetic energy is maximum. After a time t by 4, when the particle reaches positive extreme, at positive extreme, you will say that the displacement from mean position is a. At the positive extreme, the particle will be at rest, so the kinetic energy will be 0. Again, after one more time t by 4, that is at time t by 2, the particle is back at mean position, and at mean position speed is maximum omega a, so kinetic energy will be maximum. After 1/4 quarter cycle at time equals to 3t by 4, the particle is at negative extreme. So when the particle is at negative extreme, the displacement from mean position is minus a. The particle is at negative extreme, speed is 0, kinetic energy will be 0. And again, when at time equals to t, the particle is at mean, kinetic energy will be maximum equals to half m omega square a square. So if we look at the kinetic energy versus time graph, at time equals to 0, x is 0, particle is at mean, kinetic energy maximum. At time equals to t by 4, x is equals to plus a, particle is at positive extreme. At positive extreme, kinetic energy is 0, the particle is at rest, so you get 0. At time equals to t by 2, the particle is back at mean, so the speed is maximum, kinetic energy will be maximum. So now, notice this important part. By the time one cycle of displacement gets completed, 2 cycles of kinetic energy gets completed. It has followed itself, it has copied itself twice. See, if somebody asks you, this is 0, this is t by 4, this is t by 2, this is 3t by 4, and this is t. On the kinetic energy, this is 0, this is t by 4, this is t by 2, this is 3t by 4, this is t. And somebody asks you, what is the time period of kinetic energy, what will be your answer? So you will say one cycle of kinetic energy gets completed within this part. I can keep on copying the same part to get the entire kinetic energy versus time graph. Yes, you are right. So question is, what is the time period of variation of kinetic energy? The time period of variation of kinetic energy is T by 2. If the time period is half, isn't it so that the frequency has to be double? That's why we say the frequency of variation of kinetic energy is double the frequency of SHM. The time period of variation of kinetic energy is half the time period of SHM. Now moving on, how to write kinetic energy in SHM in terms of position. So we know that kinetic energy, which is half mv square, can also be written as half m into omega under root of a square minus x square whole square. Why? Because yesterday I told you guys v equals to omega under root of a square minus x square is a super important formula. So if in place of speed you substitute omega under root of a square minus x square whole square, you get kinetic energy to be equals to half m omega square into a square minus x square. Now what is a? Amplitude. What is x? Displacement from the mean position. What is m? Mass of the particle. What is omega? Angular frequency. Now here I would like to focus on small things. As the value of x increases, kinetic energy will decrease. Isn't it obvious? As the particle goes away from the mean position, the kinetic energy will decrease. At mean position, kinetic energy is maximum. How much? Half m omega square a square. Because the speed is omega a, so kinetic energy has to be half m omega square a square. As the particle moves from mean to positive extreme, the value of x keeps on increasing, so the subtracting part keeps on increasing, so the kinetic energy keeps on decreasing. At extremes, where x becomes equals to plus or minus a, here you get plus minus a whole square, that becomes a square, and a square minus a square becomes 0, so the kinetic energy becomes 0. Now, how to draw the graph? So, what is the maximum possible kinetic energy? So simple. At x equals to 0, at mean position, kinetic energy is maximum. So kinetic energy is maximum equals to half m omega square a square at x equals to 0, that is at the mean position. Now if we think of the kinetic energy versus the position graph, what does the graph looks like? So see here, at x equals to plus a and x equals to minus a, the kinetic energy has to be 0, and kinetic energy is maximum at x equals to 0. As kinetic energy is a function of minus x square, negative x square, we get the curve to be a parabola, mouth opening downwards. So the kinetic energy versus position curve is a parabola, mouth opening downwards. As you have got negative coefficient of x square, it's a mouth opening downward parabola. So at x equals to plus a and minus a, kinetic energy is 0. Kinetic energy is maximum at x equals to 0, and that kinetic energy is half m omega square a square. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk now about potential energy in case of SHM. Sir, for a spring having a spring constant k, if there is a deformation x, we say that the potential energy is half kx square. The potential energy at the mean position is taken as 0. If the potential energy at the mean position is taken as the reference potential, then how to write the potential energy for SHM at other position? We have already learned for a spring, the force applied by the spring is given by kx, and the potential energy associated with the spring for a deformation x is given by half kx square. What is the necessary and sufficient condition for a motion to be simple harmonic motion? That the net force acting should be equals to minus kx. So you have the same type of force profile, you get the same type of potential energy associated. So simply remember, if the potential energy at the mean position is taken as 0, then the potential energy for any displacement x from the mean position is given by half kx square. So now we know how to write potential energy as a function of position. But what if you need to know the potential energy as a function of time? How to write? If you take the displacement at any time t to be a sine omega t, sir, where is phi? I have taken the initial phase angle to be 0. Then the potential energy associated with SHM can also be written as half into k into a sine omega t whole square. That can be written as half into k into a square sine square omega t. We know that omega square equals to k by m. Yes. So sir, k equals to m omega square. Yes. So if you substitute the value of k here, you get the potential energy associated with SHM to be equals to half into m omega square into a square sine square omega t. Now what should we do with this sine square omega t? So just the way last time we wrote cos square omega t equals to 1 plus cos 2 omega t by 2. Here, using the formula sine square theta can be written as 1 minus cos 2 theta by 2. I will write in place of sine square omega t 1 minus cos 2 omega t by 2. So the potential energy at any time t can be written as half m omega square a square into 1 minus cos 2 omega t by 2. Now multiplying the terms, we can write the potential energy at any time t equals to 1 by 4 m omega square a square minus 1 by 4 m omega square a square into cos 2 omega t. Now I will start saying the same old thing. The average value of potential energy over one complete cycle will be 1 by 4 m omega square a square. Because this part on taking the average becomes equals to 0. The average value of cos theta over one complete cycle is 0. What is the amplitude of variation of potential energy? 1 by 4 m omega square a square. Right? And you can even in place of m omega square substitute beta k. So we will say the average value of potential energy over one complete cycle is same as the average value of kinetic energy over one complete cycle, and that is equals to 1 by 4 m omega square a square, and in place of m omega square you can write k, that is equals to 1 by 4 k a square. So the mean value of potential energy equals to mean value of kinetic energy equals to 1 by 4 m omega square a square equals to 1 by 4 k a square. Okay, next thing, the maximum possible potential energy equals to maximum possible kinetic energy equals to half m omega square a square equals to half k a square. So how do you know? Beta, just look here. If somebody asks you what is the maximum possible potential energy, you will say, sir, the maximum possible value of this quantity sine square omega t is 1. So when sine square omega t becomes 1, the potential energy will be maximum equals to 1 by 2 m omega square a square. So the maximum possible value of potential energy is same as maximum possible value of kinetic energy, and we have marked up what is the maximum possible value of kinetic energy. We already know the maximum possible speed is omega a. If the maximum possible speed is omega a, the maximum possible kinetic energy has to be half m omega a whole square. So half m omega square a square. So maximum possible potential energy equals to maximum possible kinetic energy equals to half m omega square a square equals to half k a square. Now, what is the amplitude of variation of kinetic energy? Sir, the amplitude of variation of kinetic energy came out to be 1 by 4 m omega square a square. It is same as the amplitude of variation of potential energy, 1 by 4 m omega square a square. And in place of m omega square, you can even write k. So this is equal to 1 by 4 m omega square a square or 1 by 4 k a square. So you should know amplitude as well. If somebody asks what is the frequency of variation of potential energy, the frequency of variation of potential energy 2 omega is double the frequency of SHM. So it is 2 omega, right? So we will say the frequency of variation of kinetic energy is same as frequency of variation of potential energy, which is 2 times the frequency of SHM. So remember that the frequency of variation of kinetic energy, the frequency of variation of potential energy, both are double the frequency of SHM. As the frequency is double, the time period is half. So the time period of variation of kinetic energy and time period of variation of potential energy is half the time period of SHM. Now if you think of the graph of potential energy versus the displacement, the graph comes out to be a parabola. So it is so easy, u proportional to x square. The maximum possible value of x can be plus a and the minimum possible value of x can be minus a. Notice that at the extreme, the potential energy is maximum. At the mean position, the potential energy is 0 because x is 0. So potential energy equals to half kx square. At x equals to plus a and minus a, the potential energy comes out to be maximum. Moving on. If we have got the displacement time graph as x equals to a sine omega t. So initially at time equals to 0, x is 0, the particle is at mean. When the particle is at mean, potential energy is 0. Over the period of time, the particle reaches the positive extreme. At what time? At time t by 4. So after a time t by 4, when the particle reaches the positive extreme, it is at plus a, and the potential energy will be half ka square, the maximum possible potential energy. So if you think of the potential energy versus time graph, it will be kind of the same graph. It's just that potential energy can never ever be negative. So you get this type of graph. At time equals to 0, x is 0, potential energy 0. After a time t by 4, when the particle is at positive extreme, the potential energy is maximum. Again, as the particle returns to 0, potential energy becomes 0. Again, as the particle reaches the negative extreme, the potential energy again becomes maximum. So you can see here the time taken for completion of one cycle of displacement is this much. Let's call it t. Within this much time, 2 cycles of potential energy have completed. That's why the time period of variation of potential energy and kinetic energy is half. Time period is half and frequency is double. Remember one thing, the phase difference between kinetic energy and potential energy is pi. As the particle goes from mean to positive extreme, what happens to kinetic energy? Sir, as the particle goes from mean to positive extreme, the speed decreases. Yes. So the kinetic energy decreases. Yes. As the particle goes from mean to positive extreme, the value of x increases. The displacement from the mean position increases. So you will say that the potential energy increases. So as the particle goes from mean to positive extreme, the kinetic energy decreases. Yes. The potential energy increases. Yes. So they are out of phase. Hence they have a phase difference of pi. They are out of phase. One of them is increasing while another one decreasing. You say they are out of phase. They have a phase difference of pi. Remember this. So now let's talk about total energy. Total energy is nothing but the sum of kinetic energy and potential energy. We have already learned how to write both kinetic energy and potential energy as a function of time as well as a function of position. So first, we will use the function of time and write the total energy as a function of time. The kinetic energy at any time t will be half into m into speed at any time t, which will be omega a cos omega t whole square. And the potential energy at any time t will be half k into x square, and x at any time t is given by a sine omega t whole square. So what we get is half m omega a cos omega t whole square plus half k into displacement whole square. So now, as you know that this quantity k can also be written as m omega square. So I can write here this on expansion, the whole term becomes half m omega square a square cos square omega t. This is your sine term plus half k into a square sine square omega t. Bachcho, if in place of k I substitute m omega square and then take common half m omega square a square, what do I get? So you get half m omega square a square times cos square omega t plus sine square omega t. And the value of cos square omega t plus sine square omega t becomes 1. So what we get is half m omega square a square. So substituting in place of k m omega square and then taking common half m omega square a square from both the terms, what you are left within the bracket is sine square omega t plus cos square omega t, which is 1. So the total energy at any time t is given by half m omega square a square times sine square omega t plus cos square omega t, which is 1, and in place of m omega square you can write k. So the total energy comes out to be half m omega square a square, which can also be written as half k a square. Now do remember, these two terms are nothing but the maximum possible kinetic energy and maximum possible potential energy. So remember that the total energy of a particle performing SHM is same as the maximum possible kinetic energy half m omega square a square, and that is same as the maximum possible potential energy, which is half k a square. If you visualize the energy versus time, this graph shows you at time equals to 0 maximum energy. This graph represents our kinetic energy. So kinetic energy at the mean position is maximum, then drops to 0, then maximum, then drops to 0, then maximum, then drops to 0. So the graph 2 shows the variation of kinetic energy with time. The graph 1 shows the variation of potential energy with time. If you start from the mean position, initial potential energy 0, then maximum, then 0, then maximum, then 0, and so on. But the total energy is time independent. There is no term of time here. So the total energy remains constant. So if you visualize the total energy, which is constant, equals to half m omega square equals to half k a square. Now from this particular graph, I want to re-emphasize on few things. At the mean position, yes, the potential energy given by 1 is potential energy, 2 is kinetic energy, and 3 is total energy. At the mean position, the potential energy is 0, kinetic energy is maximum, and their sum is equals to total energy. As the particle goes from mean towards positive extreme, the potential energy keeps on increasing, the kinetic energy keeps on decreasing, but their sum, the total energy, remains constant. Moreover, the maximum possible value of potential energy equals to the maximum possible value of kinetic energy, and that is equals to total energy. Keep this thing in mind. We can even write total energy as a function of position. So we know that total energy equals to kinetic energy and potential energy. We know how to write kinetic energy as a function of positions are very easy. Kinetic energy is half mv square, and for any displacement x from the mean position, we can write speed as omega into under root of a square minus x square whole square. So the kinetic energy for any position x is given by half m omega square into a square minus x square. We have already learned what is the potential energy for any position x, so that is half kx square. Now, if in place of k I substitute m omega square, what do I get here is half m omega square a square minus half m omega square x square plus half m omega square x square. So these two terms get cancelled. So what we get is that the total energy is half m omega square a square. That can be written as half k a square. So total energy can be written as kinetic energy plus potential energy. You can write kinetic energy as a function of position as well as potential energy as a function of position. So what you get is half m omega under root of a square minus x square plus half k x square. In place of k, substitute m omega square and open up the bracket. So you get half m omega square a square minus half m omega square x square plus half m omega square x square. So these two parts gets cancelled. So what you get total energy to be equals to half m omega square a square, which way is same as half k a square. So again, you can see potential energy depends upon the position from the mean position. Kinetic energy depends upon the displacement from the mean position, but the total energy is independent of the displacement from the mean position. So if we visualize the graph of energy versus the distance, now this is the graph of potential energy. Potential energy increases with the displacement from the mean position. If we think of the graph of kinetic energy, we get a downward mouthed parabola, right? So 2 represents kinetic energy. At the mean position, x equals to 0, kinetic energy is maximum. At x equals to plus a and minus a, kinetic energy is 0. And now if we think of total energy remains constant. It is independent of position. It is equals to half m omega square a square. It is equals to half k a square. So do remember that the maximum possible value of kinetic energy, half m omega square a square. The maximum possible value of potential energy, half k a square. These are equal and they are equal to total energy. The total energy in an SHM remains constant. It is independent of time. It is independent of position. So 1 represents here bachcho, potential energy. 2 represents here kinetic energy, and 3 represents here the constant one, the total energy. So let's move on. At what distance from the mean position kinetic energy is same as potential energy? At what distance from the mean position kinetic energy is same as the potential energy? So you should know how to write both kinetic energy and potential energy as a function of position. Kinetic energy as a function of position, half m into v square. Just substitute v as a function of position. So that will be omega under root of a square minus x square whole square equals to potential energy as a function of position. Potential energy as a function of position is half kx square. In place of k bachcho substitute m omega square. So you get half m omega square into a square minus x square equals to half m omega square x square. Now once you have got this, you can cancel out half m omega square, half m omega square. So you get a square minus x square equals to x square, and on solving this you can find out x. So you can say kinetic energy equals to potential energy. So half m into speed whole square, omega root a square minus x square whole square equals to half kx square. You know that k equals to m omega square. So you can even write half m omega square after squaring into a square minus x square equals to half kx square. So half m omega square into a square minus x square equals to half m omega square x square. Now cancel out these terms on both the sides. So you get a square minus x square equals to x square, or you get a square equals to 2x square, or you get x to be equals to a by root 2. In the last step, you have got a square equals to 2x square. So x square equals to a square by 2, or beta x equals to a by root 2. So let's move on and see the next example. At what distance from the mean position kinetic energy is 1/4 the maximum? Kinetic energy is 1/4 the maximum at what distance from the mean position? So you will say kinetic energy at any random position is given by half m into omega under root of a square minus x square whole square. So the kinetic energy will be given by this. Now you want this particular kinetic energy to be 1/4 of maximum, and the maximum kinetic energy is half m omega square a square. So on squaring, we can write half m omega square into a square minus x square has to be equals to 1/4 the maximum kinetic energy, and the maximum kinetic energy bachcho is half m omega square a square. So cancel out both the sides, this half m omega square a square. So what you get is a square minus x square equals to a square by 4. Now bringing this a square by 4 to the left hand side, you will write a square minus a square by 4 equals to x square, or 3a square by 4 equals to x square, or bachcho x equals to root 3a by 2. So 3a square by 4 equals to x square, or x comes out to be root 3a by 2. So at a distance of root 3a by 2 from the mean position, we can say that kinetic energy is 1/4 the maximum. Let's move on. Now let's talk about spring pendulum or the spring mass system. These are easy to cover, state focused. So if you have a block of mass m connected with a spring of spring constant k, you know that when you move the spring by distance x, the force acting will be minus kx. If the displacement is towards right, the spring force will be towards left, and if the displacement is towards left, the spring force will be towards right. So what I'm trying to say here is the equation of the force applied by spring exactly matches with the necessary and sufficient condition for a motion to be SHM. So if you move the block by some distance x towards right, the force will be towards left. You will say the F equals to minus kx, hence MA equals to minus kx, hence A equals to minus k by m into x, and in place of k by m you can write omega square. So since you know omega square equals to k by m, omega comes out to be root k by m. Now once you know that the angular frequency of this particular SHM is root k by m, you can tell what will be the time period, what will be the frequency. So time period, which is equals to 2 pi by omega, comes out to be 2 pi by under root of k by m. So that will be 2 pi under root m by k. So the time period, which is 2 pi by omega, comes out to be 2 pi under root m by k. And bachcho, angular frequency you have to remember is root k by m. Time period for spring block system comes out to be 2 pi under root m by k. And if you need to find frequency, frequency is nothing but the reciprocal of time period. So frequency will be equals to 1 by 2 pi under root of k by m. So the frequency will be 1 by 2 pi under root of k by m. So you need to keep these three things in mind before we start understanding spring mass system or spring pendulum. So let's continue. So now time to do some simple tough question. Question goes like, find the maximum possible amplitude of vibration so that the coin does not slip on the block. So let's say we have a block of mass capital M over which we have placed a coin of mass small m, and the friction coefficient between the block and the coin is mu, and the whole system is connected to a spring of spring constant k. What can be the maximum possible amplitude of vibration so that the coin do not slip on the block? So if let's say I have got something placed over my hand, for small amplitude of vibration this body is not slipping, but if I keep on increasing the amplitude, at some point it just falls off my hand. Try it out and you will realize, yeah, that for large amplitude things tends to fall. Why does this happen? Let's see. So question is, determine the maximum possible amplitude of vibration so that the coin do not slip over the block. Sir, we know that the maximum possible acceleration of a system performing SHM is given by omega square A. Yes. Omega depends upon K and M. As you keep on increasing the amplitude, the maximum possible acceleration keeps on increasing. But who is moving the coin with the block? The coin is oscillating with the block due to the friction force present between the coin and the block. Now there is a limit to how much friction force can act. On the coin, the maximum possible value of friction force will be mu mg. Hence the maximum possible acceleration of the coin will be mu g. If the acceleration of whole system will try to be more than mu g, then the coin won't be able to accelerate and it will slip. So we say that the maximum possible frictional force acting on the coin is mu mg. Hence the maximum possible acceleration of coin is nothing but mu g. Mu mg upon mass of coin, you get mu g. So if the whole system tries to move in such a way that the maximum possible acceleration is less than mu g, then they can move together. Because the maximum possible acceleration that the coin can have is mu g. If the whole system tries to move with an acceleration greater than mu g, then the coin can't have acceleration greater than mu g because friction is the one driving it. So the maximum possible acceleration, which is equals to omega square a, which can be written as under root of k by m plus m whole square. Omega equals to root k by m. Here the mass of system is mass of the block plus mass of the coin. So k by m plus m whole square into a. And this maximum possible acceleration has to be equals to mu g. So beta, simply game over. The amplitude has to be equals to mu g into m plus m by k. So the amplitude has to be mu g into m plus m by k. So the question is very simple, but it looks tough. Let's practice one more question of the same time. Question is, now you have got the block and the coin is placed above it and they are oscillating in the vertical direction. Question is, determine the maximum possible amplitude of the vibration so that the coin does not lose contact with the block. Now, why is the block oscillating? Because it is connected to spring. Why is the coin oscillating with the block? Because it is placed over the block. Now, if this block has mass capital M and the coin has mass small m and they are oscillating, so the maximum acceleration that the coin can have is downward g. It can't have an acceleration more than g in the downward direction. Why? Because when the block moves down too quick, the coin will lose contact with the block given that the acceleration is more than g. So the maximum possible acceleration that this coin can have in downward direction is g, and now we will use the same thing. So the maximum possible acceleration that the coin can have is g downwards. So just write omega square a, the maximum possible acceleration, equals to g. Now in place of omega, you can write under root of k by mass of the system. Overall mass of the block plus mass of the coin. So you will get under root of k by m plus m, omega square, so whole square into a equals to g. Once you have written this, game over. Now you can say a equals to g into m plus m by k. Okay. So these two questions are simple tough question. They appear tough, that what to do in this particular question is just that you have to see what can be the maximum possible common acceleration of the system. In the last case, the maximum possible acceleration of coin is mu g. In this case, the maximum possible acceleration of the coin is g. So that's why I just equate the maximum possible acceleration equals to omega square a, because omega square a is the maximum possible acceleration of the particle doing SHM. So moving on to the next example. Question is, there are two masses m1 and m2 combined together with a spring of spring constant k. Question is, the system is in equilibrium. If mass m2 falls suddenly, determine the amplitude of vibration. If mass m2 falls suddenly, determine the amplitude of vibration. So who will vibrate once m2 has fallen? Only m1 will vibrate, and they are asking what will be the amplitude of this particular vibration. So let's say, bachon, we have got this spring of spring constant k, and let's say right now the block is in equilibrium. If I say that right now the block is in equilibrium, it means that there has to be already some elongation in the spring, equals to how much? Equals to mg by k, and this will be your mean position, right? Now if I move this block of mass m by, let's say, 2 centimeter downwards, 2 centimeter away from the mean position, and release it, then what will happen? So the mass will oscillate. With how much amplitude? It will oscillate with an amplitude of 2 centimeter. So from whatever distance from the mean position you release it, that becomes the amplitude of vibration. So if you have this horizontal system, the spring and the block, right now the block is in equilibrium. If I move the block by a distance of 5 centimeter and release it, then it will oscillate with an amplitude of 5 centimeter. Now, so at whatever distance from the mean position you have released it, that will become the amplitude. So you will say, since initially we had two masses m1 and m2, from the natural length, the elongation in the spring, let's say, is y, and we can find out y to be equals to m1 plus m2 into g by k, since the system is in equilibrium. Once m2 has been dropped, the new mean position, the new equilibrium position will be, let's say, at some distance x, and this elongation required for the new mean position will be equals to m1 g by k. So we have released the block of mass m1 at how much distance from the new mean position? So we have released the block of mass m1 at this much distance from the new mean position. How much is this much of distance? This is nothing but y minus x. So we will say the amplitude of vibration is the distance at which the block of mass m1 has been released from the new mean position. So the amplitude will be y minus x. In place of y, you can write m1 plus m2 into g by k. In place of x, you can write m1 g by k. So when you do y minus x, you can see this m1 g by k term get cancelled. So what you are left with is nothing but m2 g by k. So these type of questions look tough. They are easy questions. So let's understand spring block system further. If you have got springs connected in series and parallel, then what to do? So first we will talk about springs in series. So if you have got multiple springs of spring constant k1, k2 and k3 connected in series, then replacing all these springs, you can place a single spring of, let's say, some spring constant k equivalent, which will be equivalent to the whole system of these three springs connected in series. And we will say that 1 upon k equivalent equals to 1 by k1 plus 1 by k2 plus 1 by k3 and so on. Rather than being connected in series, if the springs are connected in parallel, then removing all these three springs, we can place a single spring of, let's say, spring constant k equivalent. What has to be the k equivalent for this single spring if I wish to replace these three springs and place this single spring? So we say that for parallel combination of springs, the k equivalent comes out to be k1 plus k2 plus k3 and so on. Now let's understand some important point about series and parallel combination before we start applying them in question. So the important point number 1, for a given spring, the spring constant is inversely proportional to length. So if you take a spring of, let's say, length L, you cut it into half, the length becomes half and the spring constant is inversely proportional to length. So when the length becomes half, the spring constant becomes double. If you take a spring of length L and out of that spring having spring constant k, you cut out 1/4 part. So now you have a smaller spring of length L by 4. If the length becomes 1/4, the spring constant becomes 4 times 4k. Okay, so for a spring, the spring constant is inversely proportional to length. The greater the length of spring, the smaller will be the spring constant. The smaller the length of the spring, the greater will be the spring constant. The spring constant is inversely proportional to length. So given that everything else for the spring is same, the spring constant is inversely proportional to length. You are not changing the material used for making the spring. You are not changing the pitch of the spring. You are not changing the radius of the wire which has been turned to create the spring. If you keep everything else same, then the spring constant is inversely proportional to length. Now for two springs in series, if you have got two springs in series, this will be beneficial. Let's say the first one has k1, second one has k2. For springs in series, we have learned that 1 upon k equivalent equals to 1 by k1 plus 1 by k2. So you can think of 1 upon k equivalent equals to k2 plus k1 upon k1 k2, or k equivalent comes out to be k1 k2 upon k1 plus k2. So for two springs in series having spring constant K1 and K2, use the formula K equivalent equals to K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2. So for two springs in series, use the formula K equivalent equals to K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2. If n identical springs, each of spring constant K are connected in series, if n identical springs, each of spring constant K are connected in series, then what will be the equivalent spring constant? So if I have got n identical spring, 1, 2, 3, 4, how many? N springs. Let's say the first spring has got spring constant K, second K, third K, fourth K, and so on. So you will write 1 upon K equivalent equals to 1 by K plus 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 1 by K. How many times? Sir, n times. So we will write 1 upon K equivalent equals to 1 by K plus 1 by K plus 1 by K plus 1 by K. How many times? N times. So you will get equals to n by K. Hence, on flipping both the side, the K equivalent will be simply equals to K by n. So if you have got n identical springs connected in series, each of spring constant K, then the equivalent spring constant comes out to be nothing but K by n. The last point here, if n identical springs, each of spring constant K are connected in parallel. So if you have got multiple springs of spring constant K connected in parallel, each spring has got spring constant K, and you wish to remove all of them and place just one single spring. So you will say the K equivalent of this spring will be K plus K plus K plus K plus K. How many times? N times. So the K equivalent will be nothing but equals to n times of spring constant of one spring. That will be nk. So the K equivalent will be nk. So these are the 4 important points which you should remember. More or less the same type of points I will again teach you in register. If you do it now, right now properly, it will help you in future. So moving on. If the spring of spring constant K is divided into two parts such that the length of the longer part is double the length of shorter part, determine the spring constant of the longer part. So you have got a spring, it has been divided into two parts such that the length of the longer piece is double the length of the shorter piece. If the length of the longer piece is double the length of the shorter piece, they are asking you what is the spring constant of the longer piece, given that the spring constant of the whole spring is K. So visualize the spring of spring constant K length L, divide it into two parts such that the length of the longer piece is double the length of the shorter piece. So let's say the length of the shorter piece is x, so the length of the longer piece will be 2x. Now you can say that x plus 2x equals to the length of the single spring. So 2x plus x equals to L, or you can say x has to be equals to L by 3. Once you know that x is L by 3, tell me what will be the length of the longer piece? It is 2x, so that will be 2L by 3. So the longer piece has a length 2x, which will be equals to 2L by 3. We know that the spring constant is inversely proportional to length. So when the length becomes double, spring constant becomes half. Length becomes triple, spring constant becomes 1/3. They are inversely proportional. So if this longer piece has 2/3 the length of the whole spring, then what will be its spring constant? So as spring constant is inversely proportional to length, as the length becomes 2/3 from L to 2L by 3, the spring constant becomes 3 by 2 times. The spring constant becomes 3 by 2 times, that is 3 by 2k. So this piece which has got length 2L by 3 will have a spring constant 3k by 2. And this piece which has 1/3 the length will have 3 times the spring constant. So it will have the spring constant 3k. So let's move on. Now let's practice few questions based on series and parallel combination of springs. So question goes like, determine the time period of vibration of block in each case. So in this first case, you can see we have got two springs connected in series. For two springs connected in series, rather than visualizing both of them, I can think of a single spring having spring constant equals to K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2. So I can think this block is connected to a single spring of spring constant K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2. So from the formula time period equals to 2 pi under root m by k, I will say that the time period of vibration of this particular block will be equals to 2 pi under root m by k equivalent, which is K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2. So easy. Now if they give you two springs in parallel, then you know that K equivalent comes out to be K1 plus K2, and the time period will be equals to 2 pi under root m by K1 plus K2. So rather than thinking of two springs, think of a single spring having spring constant K1 plus K2. Let's move ahead. Let's say they give you this case. Here you have got two springs connected in parallel, K1 and K2, and their parallel combination is connected with a third spring of spring constant K3 in series. So how will you write the equivalent spring constant for this whole system? So first of all, rather than thinking K1 and K2, visualize a single spring having spring constant K1 plus K2 as they are in parallel. And then there is one more spring connected in series with this combination which has got spring constant K3. So you will write the K equivalent will be equals to K1 plus K2 into K3 upon K1 plus K2 plus K3. Okay. Now once you have got K equivalent, time period will be 2 pi under root m by K equivalent. So you will say the K equivalent will be, these two are in parallel, so their equivalent is K1 plus K2, and their parallel combination is in series with K3. So K equivalent will be K1 plus K2 into K3 upon K1 plus K2 plus K3. So the time period will be 2 pi under root m upon K1 plus K2 into K3 upon K1 plus K2 plus K3. This K1 plus K2 plus K3 can be moved from denominator of denominator into the numerator. The next case, let's say you have got this system. Here you can see two springs of spring constant K1 and K2 are connected in series, and their series combination is in parallel with K3. So how will you write the K equivalent? You will say, sir, for this series combination, K equivalent will be K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2. So for the whole system, the K equivalent will be equals to K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2 plus K3. So the time period comes out to be 2 pi under root m by the equivalent spring constant, which is K1 K2 upon K1 plus K2 plus K3. So easy. Now this last one, which I say is important. Here tell me these two springs are in series or parallel. You shouldn't say that they are in series. You shouldn't say that they are in parallel. Then sir, how to write the time period in this case? From the basics. If we move the mass m by certain distance x towards right, the first spring gets elongated. Since it gets elongated, so as to regain its shape, it tries to pull the block back. So on this block of mass m, when displaced by distance x towards right, the first spring applies a force towards left equals to K1x. And when you move the block towards right by distance x, the second spring gets compressed. So as to regain its natural length, it applies a force on the block towards left. So on the block, it will apply a force K2x since the compression in the second spring is also x. So due to the first spring, there is a force K1x. Due to the second spring, there is a force K2x. So when you move the block by a distance x towards right, due to both the springs, the combined force comes out to be K1x plus K2x. And from here you can write the force equals to K1 plus K2 into x. As the restoring force is proportional to K1 plus K2, you will say that the time period has to be 2 pi under root m by K1 plus K2. So the time period will be equals to 2 pi under root m by K1 plus K2. Somebody might say, sir, we can treat these two springs to be in parallel. Yeah, the result comes as if they are in parallel. But you should refrain from saying that they are in parallel. We got the result by going through the basic procedure. So moving on to the last example of the hour. So now the last example. The time period of oscillation of a block with two different springs is T1 and T2. So with the first spring, it is T1. With the second spring, it is T2. Determine the time period of oscillation if both the springs are connected in series. So if you connect both the springs in series and then place the same block, then what will be the time period of oscillation? These type of questions are standard questions and you should know how to solve them. They are easy. So visualize the first case. When the block is connected to first spring, let's say the first spring has a spring constant K1 and the time period of oscillation is T1. So you will say that T1 has to be equals to 2 pi under root m by K1. Now the same block when connected to the second spring oscillates with a time period t2. So visualize the second case. Now you will say t2 equals to 2 pi under root m by k2. They are asking what will be the time period when both the springs are connected in series. So if you connect both the springs in series, you know that the k equivalent will be k1 k2 upon k1 plus k2. Or for springs in series, we know that 1 upon k equivalent equals to 1 by k1 plus 1 by k2. In this case, let's say the whole system vibrates with a time period t dash. So you will write t dash equals to 2 pi under root m by k equivalent. From the first case, you can find out the value of 1 by k1. You will say that 1 by k1 comes out to be t1 square by 4 pi square m. How? Squaring both the side, t1 square equals to 4 pi square m by k1. और बच्चों 1 by k1 equals to t1 square by 4 pi square m. Sir, why are you so interested in finding 1 by k1? Because I know that finally I will use 1 upon k equivalent equals to 1 by k1 plus 1 by k2. That's why I have found 1 by k1. Similarly, you can find out 1 by k2, and 1 by k2 comes out to be t2 square upon 4 pi square m. And 1 by k equivalent will be equals to t dash square upon 4 pi square m. Now, bachcho, you know that 1 by k equivalent equals to 1 by k1 plus 1 by k2 since the springs are connected in series. Hence, you will say t dash square by 4 pi square m equals to t1 square by 4 pi square m plus t2 square by 4 pi square m. So when you write t dash square by 4 pi square m equals to t1 square by 4 pi square m plus t2 square by 4 pi square m, the quantity 4 pi square m get cancelled. So you get t dash square equals to t1 square plus t2 square. So from here, as for series, 1 by k equivalent equals to 1 by k1 plus 1 by k2, 1 by k equivalent equals to 1 by k1 plus 1 by k2, you will say that t dash square comes out to be equals to t1 square plus t2 square, or the time period for this system, which is t dash, will be equals to under root of t1 square plus t2 square. So that's all in this hour. In the next hour, we will talk about angular SHM, simple pendulum and damping. See you guys in next hour. Bye bye. So that's all for now. See you guys in the next hour.